Hi, it's Mr. Image, and today's video lesson is all about trying to determine why German soldiers in World War I were called Huns. What does that term mean, and how did the Germans earn that nickname? You may have heard the term Hun used before when you learned about this guy, Attila the Hun. Attila the Hun, famously known as the Scourge of God and one of history's most feared leaders. He united the Hunnic Empire in Central Asia, leading brutal invasions that pillaged Roman cities, extorting massive amounts of gold, and nearly bringing down the Western Roman Empire. Ammianus Marcellinus, the 4th century Roman historian, said that the Huns exceeded every measure of savagery. They lived like beasts rather than like men. So for hundreds of years, Europeans associated the term Hun with a savage warrior, someone who was destructive, more beast than man, and who was uncivilized. It was a name to fear. The term Hun will be used to describe German soldiers in World War I following their invasion of Belgium on August 4th, 1914. But why this term specifically? There are plenty of nasty words that the British could call the Germans, so why call them Huns? Well, it actually has to do with the speech given by Germany's Kaiser Wilhelm II. Let's jump back to July 27, 1900. The Kaiser has just inspected the German East Asian Expeditionary Corps as they prepare to ship off to China to assist in putting down the Boxer Rebellion. He gave a speech to the men, and this is what he said. "If you come before the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago the Huns, under their king Attila, made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend, so may the name Germany be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German." The Kaiser encouraged his troops to be like the Huns of old, to show no mercy to the Chinese Boxers and make the Chinese fear the word German. This speech became widely known as the Hun Speech and was reprinted throughout Europe. The term Hun became associated with German soldiers for a number of months after, and would occasionally be used in the years leading up to the start of the war. On August 4th, 1914, German troops invaded neutral Belgium, and within days, stories of German atrocities against the Belgian people were being reported. General Helmuth von Moltke, the chief of the German General Staff, wrote at the time that "Our advance in Belgium is certainly brutal, but we are fighting for our lives, and all who get in the way must take the consequences." In the early days of the war, the German army easily defeated the much smaller Belgian force that opposed them. But the Belgian civilians took up arms against the Germans, using snipers to attack the German troops and to wage a form of guerrilla warfare against them. These franc-tireurs, or free shooters, terrorized the German troops, which resulted in the Germans lashing out at the civilian population. Now, there is lots of conflicting evidence when it comes to who is responsible for the violence in Belgium and exactly what actions the German soldiers took against Belgian civilians. For over 100 years, historians have argued both sides of the issue. Now, what was absolutely clear to the British and her allies was that Germany's invasion of neutral Belgium and the stories that emerged, whether they were true or false, was a tremendous opportunity to turn the Germans into the bad guys and take control of the narrative of the war. The day after Britain had declared war, they severed Germany's undersea telegraph cables, essentially silencing their ability to communicate with any nation outside of Europe. The British were also able to intercept and monitor German communications being sent through the cables that were not severed. This meant that news coming out of Belgium and anywhere else in Europe would be controlled by the British. As the days, weeks, and months went on, the British used this advantage to transform the German soldier into something less of a man and more of a monster. He became the Hun, someone who was willing to do terrible things because it was in his nature to do so. These images of a less than human, savage soldier began to appear in British, French, and later American media. To support the claims that German soldiers had committed terrible crimes in Belgium, the British government initiated an investigation that resulted in what was called the Bryce Report. Now, I won't go into the entire report here, but Let's just say that the report was purposely written to reinforce the belief that the Germans were committing terrible atrocities against the Belgian people by making outrageous accusations that were not always substantiated or have enough reliable evidence to confirm it. But that didn't stop people from believing it. In 1915, England shipped 41,000 copies of the Bryce Report to the United States, and it played a huge role in influencing the hearts and minds of the American people. In order to try and defend themselves against these accusations made in the Bryce Report, the Germans published the White Book later that year, which blamed the Belgians for the atrocities that had taken place. But it did little good for the German cause, especially when it was reported that about 75% of the evidence appeared to be falsified. Germany's use of unrestricted submarine warfare, and especially the sinking of the passenger liner the Lusitania, continued to reinforce the message that the Germans were savage Huns. So there it is. The term Hun goes way back in European history. A word that made you think of a dangerous, violent, uncivilized, and savage person. The meaning of that word lived on and was used by the Kaiser to describe how his German soldiers would fight and terrorize the Chinese during the Boxer Rebellion. Then, at the start of the Great War, it was used by the Allies to describe those same German soldiers not as a badge of honor, but rather a negative stereotype that will have far-reaching effects for the years to come. Thanks for watching this video lesson, and I hope you learned something.